Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This time out, we're putting the band back together. I've got Jake and
Mhm.
El with me here for the show, and it's kind of funny that we're doing this because back in the old days, when I used to be on WDHA in New Jersey, the rock station, these two people were frequent guests of mine, and they've been frequent guests on my podcast show and on my YouTube channel. We welcome back Tom Frangione, who you know for all the many shows that he hosts or co-hosts on Sirius XM's Beatles channel, including the most recent one, which he's the writer for, not the host,
And
for
producer.
Writer and producer. If
Hmm.
I'm sorry.
if I yeah.
Okay. For Help from My Friends, which is all about Ringo and the All-Stars. And actually, both my guests are writers for Beatlefan as well. Tom, welcome back.
Always a pleasure to be here, Ken. And speaking of the Beatle fan, I have to make the nice transition over to our compatriot Al here. He has a terrific piece in there about Paul and Brian Wilson that I was chatting with him about. It really is something special.
Thank you, sir.
Great.
Appreciate it.
You'll have to send me, send me a copy of that.
Okay.
Would love to read that. Always like the duet they did together.
Oh yeah, a friend like you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
they sounded so good on that song together. Anyway,
Yeah.
Al Sussman's with us, as you know. He's been on this channel many, many times, and he was co-host for several years on the Things We Said Today podcast. And he's been with Beatlefan since the beginning, really, as a writer, and
First year,
almost
at
the beginning.
least.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can build yourself up a little bit more.
Yeah. I missed the first four issues.
Yeah.
The next time you're on, I'll say you started the magazine. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
I thought that I would invite Al and Tom on because, as all of you know, the two biggest releases that are about to come out for Beatle fans are Power to the People, which is all about the one-to-one concerts from John and Yoko, and material that came out the same time in 1972 and late 71 as well, coming out in a box set October 10th. And then we got the news about the Beatles Anthology 4, which along with that, volumes 1 through 3 being reissued, remastered, and in some cases there are remixes on those box sets as well. And everywhere I go and I look on YouTube every single day, everything's been negative.
Mm.
With the one exception of one of my podcasts, Talk More Talk, where we had Gary Van Sciak on, the bass player of Elephant's Memory. And because everyone's talking about the one song that's not included in the box set in any way, shape, or form, not on the Sometime in New York City album, not on the one-to-one concerts. Beatle fans across the board are complaining about both those releases. So I thought I would invite my two friends here to give us their takes on how they feel about this and the good and the bad with both of these box sets. So what do you say we start with the anthologies?
Okay.
Okay. And I just want to say one thing. I'm pleased with anything that comes out. Always thrilled because it keeps the Beatles in the news, and that's absolutely necessary because let's face it, it's a business.
Hmm.
There's a Beatles machine out there. There has to be new material coming out every single year of some kind. And let's face it, every year since the Sgt. Pepper box set came out, every year, in the last quarter of the year, there's something that comes out. And many of us have been thrilled, especially with the archival box sets of
Mm.
Beatles albums. So, on the one hand, I'm very pleased that anything's out there for the Beatles, and in this case for John and Yoko. And I'm going to mention right now um, what the complaints are about the Beatles Anthology 4 and the anthologies in general. Only 13 unreleased tracks. Volumes 1 through 3 are the same songs, though there are different mixes, like I said. Initially, anyway, available as a 4 pack on CD, 8 CDs, and a 12 LP box. No word on a DVD or Blu-ray yet, or if there even will be. We also know that since the Beatles Anthology, the video is going to air on Disney Plus. Disney, as a company, they're not thrilled about putting out physical product. So because of that,
Mhm.
we were fortunate to get back, though we had to wait a while for that. So we don't know if there's going to be anything physical coming out on the Beatles Anthology. So, how would you guys like to address these particular issues? So let's start with Tom about let's just say only 13 unreleased tracks.
Well, first thing, Ken, I made my list of, well, the first list I made was, why don't I have a Facebook account and check message boards? This is why. Um, but the things that, people have sent us, through some of the Sirius XM email, things people have shared with me in conversations like this, that you just ran down about half the complaints that I've heard. There are more, and they run from the ridiculous to the sublime. If I could throw a few more in there just to kind of, to bandy them about. The first one I saw was, why aren't we getting Rubber Soul instead?
Well, I
I
mean,
don't know.
that is,
Why aren't we getting Beatles for Sale instead? Okay, because you're not. Okay. Um,
wait a minute, wait a minute. I mean, let's a lot of people were expecting Rubber Soul because it is the 60th anniversary. And for
right.
all the arguments about the Beatles not caring about anniversaries,
Yeah.
it's the 30th anniversary of Anthology.
That's right.
It's the
Sometimes
50th
sometimes
anniversary.
that happens, but it's also the 60th anniversary of Shea Stadium.
And
Yeah,
help.
yeah, and help. I mean, so they're not necessarily tied to anniversaries.
Hmm.
Um, there were complaints. Well, they didn't remix the first three albums. Well, those were outtakes. They weren't mixed. To remix something, you would have had to mix it first, right?
Exactly.
So, that wasn't wholly, interesting to me. Then there were people complaining about what's actually in it. Why do we have to get the original mixes of Free as a Bird and Real Love if we're getting the new mixes? I'll tell
Yeah,
you why, because if you left them off, people would say, well, we should have both. Okay,
exactly.
that's why. There were other ones. Why aren't we getting Carnival of Light? I read that one. Why are we not getting the 28-minute Helter Skelter? These fall under the heading of some people are never satisfied. But the two that were furthest out for me that I just said, all right, it's time to just, take the conversation elsewhere. One was really, really actually made some sense. Okay. So if you take volumes 1, 2, or 3 and then piece them together, they
Hmm.
tell one chronological story. Fair enough.
Hmm.
Why not? Why would volume 4 be chronological unto itself, but not be put as part of the whole chronology? Should they have, made it one long chronology? Okay, that's open to debate.
Hmm.
I think, one of the reasons they probably wouldn't is because they'd say, I don't know, pick one of the songs, the outtake of Across the Universe. Pick one. I don't get. Leave My Kitten Alone. Well, it was originally on volume 1, but now it's on volume 2, and it would just confuse people. So I
Yeah.
think having it stand on its own, probably is okay. Um, and this is not land I want to go through now or any other time, but then it was, well, why the price is so high. And here come the dominoes. Because of the tariffs and Trump okay, enough.
Mm.
Okay. So, there were all these, why aren't we getting the 28-minute Helter Skelter? And, it's just like, let's
When
take a look at what we are getting.
well,
And
you've
let's,
got the the
yeah,
the 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 12-minute Helter Skelter, which is on the
yeah,
the White Album box.
yeah. Mhm.
That's torture. You
Well,
want another 15 minutes of that?
Well, and if you like that, you'll love this Carnival of Light, which admittedly most people haven't heard. It is legendary unto itself because
Hmm.
no one's heard it. I've heard parts of it, sometimes the road less traveled is less traveled for a reason. We could leave it
Yeah.
at that.
Right.
But
If you were tripping on acid and in an underground club in February of 1967, you could probably appreciate it.
well, it's like I say, it's not so much a song, it's a sound collage, and
Exactly.
it would be so far removed from everything else you hear in that anthology. It would be obtuse to say at a minimum.
Yeah.
But to
Can I
your
play?
point, Ken,
Yeah,
to
can I
your
play
point,
devil's advocate for
yeah,
as far as Carnival of Light?
yeah,
I understand what you're saying there, but there are some people who feel, especially because it's been brought up so often
yeah,
by Paul and that he wants to release it. If they could put out Revolution #9, or John and Yoko could put out all the experimental stuff, all the
yeah.
avant-garde stuff that they did, why can't we do the same thing with the Beatles? It's
Because
proved the point that Paul was into all this experimental stuff a little earlier than John was.
yeah,
But so that's a part of their history. And maybe you can just make that a
yeah.
separate disc.
It would have to stand completely out of the
Yes.
chronology, whether it's one,
Exactly.
two, three, four, or one, two, three, and four. It would have to
Right.
stand out. You couldn't be in the middle of, Leave My Kitten Alone and Fool on the Hill and Lady
Mhm.
Madonna, and then drop this thing in the middle. It would be far too out of place. But
Well,
let's
this,
go back to your questions, Ken. I think you were starting with what was it? The only 13 new tracks. Was that where we kicked off?
uh-huh.
Mhm.
Okay, so there's 36 tracks, right, on volume 4. Okay. So there's 13 new ones, but don't forget, I mean, and when you hear them, I know you guys have heard Free as a Bird. Wait till you hear Real Love. I swear to God,
Oh,
it is
I,
it is light years ahead of itself. It is
mm,
so good.
Hmm.
So you're really getting, let's call it 15 new ones, and a little asterisk, now and then finally finds a home. I mean, putting it on the Blue album, that was
Made no
that
sense.
was a coin
yeah.
flip at best.
Mhm.
But it should be as part of the anthology, and having the three of those tracks together in one place really does make sense, particularly that they're all in the Mal format, with the
Mhm.
cleaned up vocals. So you're really getting 16. Okay, so whether it's 13 or 16, let's talk about that. Um, here's something interesting that I think people may take a step back and reassess when they hear this. Right? We've gotten all the box sets from Sergeant Pepper right up to the end, right? Well, I mean, look, there's not a mystery tour box set or a yellow submarine one, but
Right.
you know, to my point before, Rubber Soul, which Giles told us in the studio is the next one they're doing.
Mhm.
That's probably as far back as you go where the whole albums have songs that are being developed in the studio. Okay, when they in the early albums, we've heard, a good chunk of that first session, for Please Please Me. Yeah, it's all done
Mhm.
one day, but the songs, they have them ready to go. They have to perfect them. They have to get great takes on them. They have to be perfected. But I'll posit this question: how different do you think take 4 of Little Child would be compared to take 5 of Little Child?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
people will hear a lot of that when they hear some of these early tracks, like take 11 of If I Fell. Frankly, it sounds to me very much like what you think take 11 of If I Fell will sound. It's
Mhm.
close, and they're working out the harmonies and stuff. That's not to say they never experimented early on. I mean, you only have to go to Anthology 1 first time around to listen to I'll Be Back. That
Mhm.
is a brand new song,
Yeah.
Right.
right? When they do it. One of the real exciting things that's in here that I think people are going to love is Tell Me Why. Takes 4 and 5. There's a surprise there. That's all I could tell you. But there's some really, really good stuff in there. And I think, you know, I'm not, I know I'm not the only one who's going to go in there and, make their own little playlist and say, this is the new
Of
stuff and this is what I
course.
really want to listen
Mhm.
to. But point is, not everybody bought every one of those box sets.
Right.
So if there's, the outtakes, those really interesting outtakes, I'm just going to think off the top of my head, White Album, certainly that version of Good Night was one of the best
Mhm.
outtakes they ever dug up.
Yep.
The alternate version of Guitar Gently Weeps, even though it's just a little jam, You're So Square. Not everyone has bought, particularly that 6-disc giant
Mhm.
box set. So in that sense, it's a very good sampler of what's in the box sets. I would say that it does serve a pretty good purpose there. Some of the stuff that's in there though, it's amazing how much they still continue to dig deeper um, and find things that even, the most ardent bootleg collectors, when we think we've got it all, we must have the tip of the iceberg, and that's it. So
Huh.
13 new tracks is absolutely welcome from where I'm sitting.
Okay. I just wanted to add one more thing to bounce off the Carnival of Light discussion.
Mm.
And I was mentioning the early John and Yoko albums.
Hmm.
Electronic sound. How could that go out? I mean, I know it's just the George Harrison
Yeah.
album, but
Yeah.
you're trying to justify a reason. I'm trying to do it myself for Carnival of Light. But if they can put out the most experimental stuff at the time, which they knew wouldn't sell commercially.
Right. And it didn't sell a lot on its reissues on CD. I mean, it didn't. Call it what it is.
Yeah, and also they were kind of vanity projects
Sure.
within the embryonic Apple, and they weren't under the aegis of the Beatles.
Right.
Right.
They weren't Beatles recordings.
Yeah.
And there is a difference.
That's a great point. There really is a difference.
Okay. How about you, Al? As far as what I just said, only 13 tracks.
Well, I guess 2 or 3 weeks ago, when the word started to filter out that it was going to be that the release for the fall was going to be an anthology, a upgraded anthology rather than the Rubber Soul box, but with a fourth
Disc.
either LP or disc, and I'm thinking, other than all of the stuff that's on those boxes, how much really interesting marketable material is there left to fill up, say, a fourth double CD, or was it 3 LPs?
Mm-hmm.
And what, I'll put the question out there. What would you suggest for to fill up that fourth volume, rather than the tracks that had been on the boxes?
Well, that's the hard part, because
Exactly.
if we can agree that the material from Pepper forward, or actually from Revolver forward, has been sufficiently mined. Yes, I know there's another take of "Got to Get You Into My Life" somewhere in a vault that I want to hear. I get it. But
Right.
that period has been sufficiently mined. Again, working backwards, 1965 and prior. Okay. First off, this isn't a guess. Some of those songs were nailed in 1 or 2 takes.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
There are not going to be 100 takes of, rock and roll music or something like that.
Right. Yesterday was 2 takes.
Right. And you're done. So, and to my point, I used Little Child just as an example before. That's not part of the new set, but these are songs they were playing, and had they brought them into the studio and said, let's polish it up and make a record. I think when you hear that on the early tracks here, yeah, it's always interesting to hear where they're taking it, and how they're working out a harmony here or there. That's some great stuff. But in terms of real revelatory moments, again, go back even to what's in 1, 2, and 3. Yes, it's great to have official releases of "Leave My Kitten Alone" and "How Do You Do It," and finding a song like "You Know What to Do" or something like that. But in terms of work tapes, I mean, did you find I'm just going to pick one, I'm Down, that rough take of I'm Down? Interesting to hear.
Yeah,
The final record is absolutely better.
Mhm.
Okay.
absolutely.
But
Yep.
how much of that is that song really going to take great shape in the studio? It's not, it's really not an evolution. What will be
Mm-mm.
interesting, one of the great sessions is, Paul in 65 doing Yesterday, I'm Down, and I've Just Seen a Face in one session, right? Now,
Hmm.
on previous anthologies, we heard I'm Down and Yesterday. This time around, we complete the trifecta. We'll get I've Just Seen a
Just
Face.
right.
So we'll actually get to hear that legendary session, unfold a little bit. So I think there's value there too.
Hmm. In fact, interesting. I was thinking, if you remember, there's not a lot from Rubber Soul on the original
Mhm.
anthology too.
Yeah.
And there's what is it, two tracks or three from Rubber
Um,
Soul that are on the
Nowhere Man is on
uh,
the new one.
Nowhere Man and In My Life. That's it from
that's
British
it.
Rubber Soul
Yeah.
anyway. Yeah.
That I'm wondering if the fact that there's so little in the way of kind of outtake material that they felt, at least, that's you know worthy of release. I wonder if that might be a clue as to why, for the third year in a row, there's no Rubber Soul box.
Yeah. Although, those are songs you can hear them that you can hear that these songs are very developed in the studio, even the
Yeah.
instrumentation,
Mm-hmm.
on things like Think for Yourself. Certainly, on Michelle and songs like that. There's things that have happened there
Mm-hmm.
along the way. Again, as opposed to, stuff from Please Please Me or with the Beatles.
Sure.
Or they could just be saying, let's not give away the store on Rubber Soul yet because we got something
Mm.
good going. He said,
Mm-hmm.
fingers crossed, right?
Yes.
What
One
was
thing
what was
I
interesting to
wanted
me,
to,
go
yeah.
ahead. I was just going to say with Mystery Tour, there's a bunch of songs that we all relate as Magical Mystery Tour that are on here. Baby, You're a Rich Man, All You Need Is Love,
Mm-hmm.
Hell Walrus. And then we start getting into um Yellow Submarine soundtrack stuff like Hey Bulldog and things like that. Was wondering, does that kind of, since we've gotten Penny Lane and Strawberry Fields kind of covered pretty well in the Pepper box, does
Mm-hmm.
that kind of take Mystery Tour out of the running? Because that's a set of
Yeah.
songs took a lot of work in the studio,
Yeah,
Sure.
right?
I thought there would be definitely a combined Magical Mystery Tour Yellow Submarine
Yeah,
release.
you throw and you can populate that with Lady Madonna and all that. But Lady
Mm-hmm.
Madonna then gets shown up in the White Album box.
Right.
That's right.
Hard to figure out what's going to happen there. And there's a wild card here, and that's the new head of Apple, Tom Green. You know, he comes from a very different background than Jeff Jones. Jeff was a records guy. He knew how to market a catalog and mine a
Mm-hmm.
catalog.
Mhm.
This is someone who comes with a totally different background, and it will remain to be seen how deep they'll go into, mining, box sets of albums. Look, everybody's got their guesses, but maybe 1963 gets put into one basket, stuff from Please Please Me and with the Beatles. 1964 gets put in its own basket, with Hard Day's Night and Beatles. I mean, go
Mm-hmm.
read the Lewison book. How much outtakes you think are in there for Beatles for Sale? I mean, it's it's half covers,
Yeah.
it's stuff that they knew. How different do you think that's going to be? You heard the alternate version of Kansas City. Interesting
Sure.
to hear, but that's it.
Mm-hmm.
You got that one and one on the record, and you're done. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think Rock and Roll Music was two takes, one or two.
One or
Yeah.
two, that's all that was too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And plus, we know that they had to do an accelerated process of recording that album
Sure.
because they had just gotten back from America, and then
Right.
they had to go back out to tour the UK.
Sure.
Yeah. What I wanted to bring up was, and I mentioned this on the Things We Said Today podcast, kind of like the flip side of what you were just saying, Al. Maybe they're holding back on Rubber Soul. I was thinking maybe
You
There is.
don't mean maybe, you mean must be.
All Honeymooners fans beware.
Yeah.
Now and then we slip in a line or two from the TV show. But it could be that on those first six albums, maybe there isn't, like you said, enough really good material to warrant putting out.
That's the thing.
So I'm thinking, you know, maybe we weren't getting Rubber Soul for that reason. I can't see them putting out an archival box set for each album, Please Please Me with the Beatles. And
No.
I can't see that happening. But, it really makes me wonder if we do get anything for Rubber Soul, that might be it.
Maybe help. Things are
You
starting
know,
to get interesting right around there. Look, there's still the one or two takers like Dizzy Miss Lizzy or whatever.
mhm.
But there and even, I guess like even yesterday, two takes, right? We're done.
Yeah.
Um, but there seems like there's a few in there that probably, have something, that they worked on in the studio.
Hmm.
So,
Well, I used to,
or does 1965 go on its own with Rubber Soul and Help?
Mhm.
Maybe.
I hate to
Or
think of
or
like twofers,
Yeah,
kind of
something
keep
like
it
that.
as the albums to
Yeah.
me, in a
Well,
way.
1965 sessions, the 1964 sessions, the 1963 sessions, whatever.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a way of slipping sometime in New York City into this new box set where they're not
Mm,
specifically pointing out sometime in New York City.
yeah,
Most of the material is, but they're trying to do it under the umbrella of one to one.
sure.
And there is a precedent for doing a package of some kind geared to one year, and that's the 63 bootleg
Yeah.
recordings
Right.
that iTunes
Which is
put out.
interesting. That's a good point, Al. They protected 60 odd tracks, some BBC stuff, some studio
Mhm.
stuff. And I think two of them get into this new anthology.
That's right.
Make it onto there. There's a take of I saw her standing there and a take of Money that
Mhm.
come from that iTunes download bundle. So out of
Mhm.
all that, you know, look at the songs that they protected in that bundle.
Yeah,
There's a Place, Misery, right down the line from that first album. And this is what we got. Two more songs from 1963.
Mm. They even had the demos in there of Bad to Me
Yeah.
and I'm
Hmm.
in Love, which was a nice surprise to put in there.
Hmm. Yep.
But anyway, there are some Beatle fans out there, and I know you both think that this is crazy, who will have the argument that because it's the Beatles, they're the greatest band there ever was, they have the greatest catalog there ever was, the most influential band of all time,
mhm.
that everything that they've done should come out. Every take of every song.
That's that's
I don't think we
ridiculous.
I don't think we get to make that call.
No,
I
Okay.
know that. I'm just saying what some fans think. Uh,
Yeah.
no,
I mean, like, so who was the greatest writer of all time? I don't know. Throw one out. Hemingway. Are you entitled to see every note that he wrote on something he never put out? I don't know. You know.
no.
this is just,
Mm,
I'm just trying to voice the opinion of
Sure.
some fans that are out there.
Sure.
And I can understand that reasoning because of who they are.
Yeah.
Of course, we all have our own opinions who the greatest are when it comes to artists. But I used to be very anti-bootleg when I first started out. To me, the Beatles catalog was perfect the way it was. Why put out anything that's below par? Why put out takes that are not as good as the release takes? And I've since got a complete 180 on that. And I find all the different takes to be very interesting. And I also think that if everything came out, every single take, the people who care enough about it would buy it and they would accept the fact that these aren't perfect takes. So I don't think anything could really harm the Beatles' reputation as far as what goes out, because as long as people know these are not.
Yeah, but that's the point. Not everybody knows. Okay. We know
right.
our generation of fandom, And we have a couple different ones right on this right on this little call here.
Hmm.
We know what that is. We were talking about this at the Fest for Beatlefans just last month in Chicago, and just within the context of I hosted two different auctions,
Uh-huh.
and there's less appetite for, like, people don't connect with, I don't know, the collectibles, the gum cards, the lunch boxes, the posters, and all that the way they once did, because it is out of time to them. So newer generation fans, those things don't appeal to them. They collect the music. They have it on, generally in a digital format. The collecting and archiving is not as, as important to them. And just to go down the list and say, okay, well, here's 20 takes of Fool on the Hill or something. It could be overwhelming and confusing if you don't digest it correctly. So that has to be taken into account too.
No, well, this raises another.
Nobody I know collects MP3s. No, I mean, who collects that?
Okay, but you're talking about more casual fans,
Yeah, but guess what? The original fans are getting older. They
right?
they are not as
Hmm.
fervent about it in many cases. Some of them are now out of the Beatlefest and collecting and all that. And let's
Hmm.
call it what it is. Paul and Ringo are in their 80s, and a lot of their fan base is getting up there with them too. That's
Hmm.
not going to be the fan base that Apple or anyone else is going to be catering to as the years go by.
Well,
As
that's
a,
why I wanted to raise that question. Who is the Beatles audience now?
Hmm.
well, as a matter of fact, one of the podcasts that I've been listening to the last couple of weeks to get different reactions. Um, it's an audio file one, and they're talking about the fact that this box is definitely aimed at a younger audience, which may account for um, um, the lack of really um, really collectors oriented material
Right.
that's on at least the fourth volume.
Alf,
So,
unpack that a little
mm,
bit for me. The new audience.
mhm.
Define that for me a little bit better.
I think they're aiming for probably millennials and Gen Z, and I guess what do they call that now? The real the the teenagers and tweens. I think those are
Mm,
now Gen Alpha or some nonsense
mm.
like that. But I mean, they already captured probably certainly the millennial audience. Not even with a collector's package of some kind. They did it with one.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know.
and again, introducing fans to it, I think, that whole angle, Ken, that you brought up of make it available and let people sort it out. I'm not sure that's where they would go with this, because we can go in and appreciate take 10 of Good Night and take 20 of I Will and take 30 of Sergeant Pepper, because we
Mm-hmm.
know how the story ends. It ends really,
Right.
really good.
Uh,
Um, if that's your introduction to the band, okay, take 10 of Sergeant Pepper or take 20 of Lady Madonna. Um, it might not be as much fun knowing how it ended. If you're introduced to it kind of in reverse.
Never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, I know, let's say if somebody came to me and said, "You've got to hear this great band. You've never heard of them, or you have heard of them, but you don't know their music. Let me turn you on to them."
Hmm.
And they turned me on to it with their outtakes and their alternate takes before the polished takes. I'm not sure I'm not sure that I'd be sitting here going, I can't wait to hear how it ultimately finishes up. I want to hear the band as they would represent themselves.
Right. But my argument is that there's different levels of Beatle fans.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
for the most part, I would say that all the archival box sets that came out from Sgt. Pepper through Revolver really catered to more of a hardcore fan.
Absolutely, they did.
Hmm.
However, the brilliant thing that Universal did was they put out different versions, a one disc version, a
Yeah.
special edition
Yeah.
version, two discs. So people who may not want to go the full route and get the whole box set can just get a sampler of outtakes. That I think was brilliant. But they were doing that all this time. And what they're doing with this new box set is I think that they're kind of alienating the hardcore fan. And I'm not saying that that should be their top priority,
Mm.
because chances are they have all that other material on Anthology 4 from buying all those other box sets. So then why bother spending, well, the price of a four double disc CD or 12 LPs to get 13 songs?
Yeah.
Well, I think
So,
they really are aiming for a younger audience, because as a matter of fact, currently, if you go to Spotify, there aren't currently, not even, they have the three remastered volumes
mhm,
on Spotify, and they're marked as such, as remastered.
right.
Plus they have, and this is obviously official, this is through the Beatles, and they also have a kind of like a best of set, which includes the new mix of Free as a Bird.
Hmm.
Uh-huh.
And yeah,
Didn't they
and
remaster the anthology for iTunes some years ago? Not remix it or anything, but didn't they do one? And they had actually
I
put out like a best of anthology too, I think.
yes,
Yeah, so
yeah.
I'm wondering if those are what's out there. I I
um
don't know. I don't generally buy it, through the digital source.
yeah,
But I
this,
wonder I wonder if they're the first time remasters.
because I think the that best of anthology, that's listed separately.
Yeah.
This is like a new, this sort of best of collection is new.
Hmm.
And it's it's obvious that, given that they're releasing this, at least, on one particular streaming service, what, 2.5 months before
Yeah.
the
I'm not
actual.
I'm not sure that those are going to be the ones that are coming out now. They may be the previous remasters. I haven't checked, so I can't say for certain.
I
So
haven't checked.
Yeah.
But I think around 2011 they did some
yeah,
mixing.
Y- yeah, they
Early.
remastered them somewhere around 15 years ago, I think. So that may be the versions that are in this thing. I don't think it's going to be the 2025 mixes. Actually, let me just look at something. Stand by here. I have a list. I think they actually call them 2025 mixes as opposed to, or 2025 masters. Let me
Hmm.
just talk
Yeah,
about masters.
the only thing that's listed as a 2025 mix is Free as a Bird.
Free as a bird, yeah. So my guess is that's not the ones that are going to be in the new anthology.
Although they do sound, because I listened to a bunch of it today, and they, especially on this collection, they sound like, as you would say, they sound like $1 million.
Hmm. Okay.
So do you think that every decision now that Apple's going to make is going to be primarily aimed at a younger audience?
Well, I think a lot of the decision making is really kind of out of Apple's hands. I think a lot of these decisions on on the part of both boxes
Uh-huh.
are that it's UMG.
Yeah, it's a lot of people, I don't know if we're ready to transition to to Power to the People yet, but I saw a lot of the arrows they were slinging around. How could Sean and Yoko permit this.
Yeah.
A lot of these decisions, as Al just nailed it right on the head, are coming from Universal. Okay,
Hmm.
who still controls that part of the catalog. Now, of course, they have to work in concert with the Lennon camp, the Harrison camp, McCartney, Ringo, whatever. But a few months ago, I know at the one-to-one movie premiere, Sean, was quite accessible, and a couple guys from Elephant's Memory were there, and they were talking
Hmm.
about the upcoming box, and it was, Sean, you could see was kind of still struggling with it. Yeah, it's been in the works a while, and then they have the problem with the one song and and you could see it wasn't he didn't have the last word at that point. That was very much the feeling I got. Um, that's a whole nother kettle of fish when we start talking about the power to the people box.
Right. But the thing is, I mean, a lot of Beatle fans, first generation fans, second generation,
Hmm.
they will say things like, why haven't we officially gotten a Beatles at Shea DVD? You take something like the Beatles Anthology Volume 1, and you've got, I think it's 5 songs from the Deck Audition recordings. Sure, they've been bootlegged many times. Put out all 15. Not only that, there are fans out there that have their own mixing board and have
Hmm.
technology, and they create their own mixes, and they're putting it on YouTube, and
Oh
some
yeah.
sound fantastic.
How
I mean,
many
a lot of this
versions of,
stuff
I'm
can be
sorry.
done, you know.
Yeah. How many versions of Shea Stadium are out there? Uh,
But I
um,
mean, put out an official one to know that it is exactly what is endorsed by Apple in the best quality possible with whatever bonus material they might want to throw in there. It's such a historic concert. Why wouldn't they do something like that?
well, you would have thought they would have done it in what, 3 years ago when it ran in the theaters, or no, no, it was 2016. Ran in the theaters with 8 days a week, and nothing happened.
So, I mean, these are questions that a lot of fans want to know. Why don't these important historic events matter?
Mhm.
So I see the validity in asking that question. So much has been made about the Beatles at Shea. Why can't there just be an official one from Universal, a DVD Blu-ray of some kind? You could tack that on as a bonus thing on the Beatles anthology. I'm just saying, I'm throwing all this out there because that's one of the most essential parts of the Beatles' history, important parts.
Yeah.
Things
The
changed because they played a stadium, and now all that changed for rock artists. Oops.
uh, the DVD Blu-ray angle is the problem is that sales of DVDs and Blu-rays are cratering,
Hmm.
which is why it's very unlikely that this new cut of the anthology is going to be released in a physical form.
Yeah, and like I
You
say, for
know.
us, for our generation, the Beatles put out an album and we collected it. We consumed it, and consuming it meant owning it and holding it in your
Mm-hmm.
hand and
Yeah.
taking it home and putting it with your other Beatle records. That's not how consumers consume these days.
Right.
They don't. I mean, to Al's point, I mean, I don't know about sales of DVDs and Blu-rays and anything, but I know I don't go to Blockbuster much anymore. I know that.
Mm-hmm. And
Look,
it.
I collect Blu-rays and DVDs of whatever music documentary it is I'm talking about, whether it's the Beatles,
Mm-hmm.
Led Zeppelin, Billy Joel, whoever it might be. I like to have a library of it and grab it whenever I want and go to any part I want. And unfortunately, not everything will stream forever, right?
Hmm.
That's just not how it works, right? There's just not capacity to do that. And that's something as a collector and as a student of the band, I want to have an archive of, whether it's because I'm doing a radio show and I say, I need that clip from that record or that concert or whatever it is, or just because I say, you know what, I want to go watch that. That was one of my favorite shows or whatever it is. Um, we consumed it in a very different way than people
Hmm.
primarily consume today,
Hmm.
which is why I love when I read something like, hey, vinyl is making a comeback. The last 2 years, I can't figure this one out. I swear I can't. Cassettes are making a comeback, right? Ringo's last couple of EPs, they were on cassettes. And I'm like, why? You know,
Hmm.
but I don't know if it's just, some nostalgic thing or whatever it is. It's not because they're easier to use and sound better than CDs. I know
No.
that. But what is it with the cassette format that's making a comeback? I don't know.
Hmm.
But one thing I do like that Universal and Apple have done when they're doing these sets, the anthology, Power to the People, they're coming out on CD, on LP, and digitally. You can get it in any medium that you want.
Hmm.
The CD guys right here are going to get it. Okay. The people who want to stream it can go stream it. Okay. Those who want to collect it can collect it.
And I can't believe they won't make each volume available separately instead of just packaged together.
We're talking on
I
the
don't know.
CDs or the
E-
video.
No, the CDs for Anthology.
Yeah, right now that's just a box set, right?
Yeah.
All four.
And like I said, if they've got the first three volumes already on Spotify, for people who just want to stream, I think the chances of them, splitting up the the four individual sets is probably not real good.
Well, then a lot of these people are only going to buy it for volume four, and they're spending a lot of money for that.
Mm, they sure are.
Yeah.
So don't get me wrong, I'm thrilled when any new product comes out on the Beatles. I want to see their name out there constantly because it's so important to keep their name out in the public eye, and that's how their catalog continues to sell. You got to remind people that they existed and all that. But I was just thinking, was it when the catalog was reissued in 2009
Right,
digitally,
90909.
and they made available the Beatles at the Washington Coliseum digitally.
Right.
So why can't they do something like that for Shea or for something really important? Or the TV appearances that they made, some of which are fantastic, like Big Night Out or something like that. I mean, some of that, the audio is on Anthology 1.
Right. Well, I mean, the Sullivan shows are out there,
Yeah,
on DVD. And then and the Washington Coliseum, I think, is still available if you buy the complete stereo package
right.
through iTunes. But Shay, I just they just don't seem to consider Shay as being a priority. They've always felt that way.
Eh, Kind of baffling to me. Anyway,
I think it's that that they as much of a as much of a spectacle as it was. I think they take the attitude of our performance was crappy, which is why they ended up going to the studio and sweetening a lot of it.
hmm,
I mean, look, that's not uncommon even today. People go in and
Yeah.
sweeten up, and of
Yeah.
course, when you're playing through 100-watt amp in a baseball stadium, it's going to be a lot of sweetening up to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, I'm just saying that for archival purposes, because the Beatles were who they were, sometimes you got to put aside who your demographic audience is and just make sure that something's out there to be
Well,
preserved.
that has been done. If you remember the entire crux of the Hamburg tapes back in the 70s.
Uh,
Hmm.
Beatles wanted it stopped and everything, and a judge ruled that these were of historic importance and let it go out. Of course, if Apple had the attorneys that they had then that they have now, that could have been stopped because great piece of research that our friends Wally and Harry did,
Hmm.
proved when the tape was made which was after they were signed to EMI. They could have stopped that thing cold.
It's true.
But
Mm.
the allegation on the album was it was recorded sometime in 1962. Well, they were there three times in 1962. When in 62 was far from moot since they signed a
Mhm.
recording contract at the end of May.
Right.
So, if it was after that, and you can go prove it just by the release date of some of the songs that they covered.
Mm.
But that's another conversation for another day.
Well, it's all to me part of the same conversation because
Yeah.
I hear in my head what can be done.
Yeah.
Oh, whether it should be done is up to the powers that be. But I just remember like when we had Peter Jackson as a guest on
Hmm.
Things We Said Today the first time, and once he explained the Mal technology, immediately my mind started to race. What about everything that's in mono? Put it all in stereo in a really good stereo mix. What about the Star Club tapes? A lot of people think, oh,
Star
come
Club
on.
would be incredible.
Yeah, I mean, that could be done. And if you're only thinking, well, who's it really going to appeal to? Young people aren't going to care as much about that as, the first and second generation fans, the people who know the history more,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and that stuff may get lost.
Yeah.
Anyway, so on we go to Power to the People.
Okay.
Um, when I look at the contents of what's going to be in the box set, it's just pretty amazing to me. There's a lot of material in here. There's 3 discs, I'm talking CDs, of the one-to-one concerts, albeit the first one is a hybrid, the best of the afternoon and the evening show.
Hmm.
There's also, and every Blu-ray audio covers 3 discs at a time. Okay, so the Blu-ray audio for the one-to-one concerts will all be on one Blu-ray audio, the first one. And then for the next 3 CDs, you've got New York City. They've now changed the name. Instead of Sometime in New York City, it's New York
Mhm.
City with a new remix, missing the first song. Then there's an evolutionary mix CD of songs from Sometime in New York City. And then there's a studio jam with elements mixes of songs from Sometime in New York City. Those are 3 CDs that'll all make up the Blu-ray audio of the second disc. Then you've got 3 CDs. You've got a live jam, the concert for UNICEF at the Lyceum Ballroom, and the concert with Frank Zappa at the Fillmore East. And from what I understand, some of those songs are full length. They were trimmed on the original album release. Then there's a live jam 2 with David Peel at the John St. Clair rally, the live benefit for Attica State victims at the Apollo Theater in Manhattan, live on the David Frost Show, and the Jerry Lewis Muscular Dystrophy Telethon.
Hmm.
And then a final disc, a home jam, the home recordings from the St. Regis Hotel in New York City, what's been bootlegged for many years as Clock,
Mhm.
um, and also home recordings from the Campus Inn in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Um, and that includes 4 songs with Phil Oakes. So there's a lot of material here
Oh yeah.
in all 9 discs. But
Hmm.
the conversation has been mainly 95% about the one missing song. And also, it should be pointed out that Sisters Oh Sisters, while it is very prominent on the box set, the live performance of that song, of Yoko's song, is not to be found on the one-to-one concerts, either afternoon or evening. So
Mhm.
the one-to-one shows are not complete, and that all-important first song,
Hmm.
which was also performed at the one-to-one concerts, is not on there.
Hmm.
So the argument is, and I certainly can understand it, why does it have to be that way now?
Yeah.
It's been on so many other Lennon releases. In fact, one of my favorite releases of a compilation was Working Class Hero, which was a
Mhm.
2 CD disc. It was on that. It was on the original one-to-one album and video cassette when it came out. It's not like the song is erased from history totally. You can go on YouTube and you can play the studio version. You can actually play the one-to-one concert performance off YouTube. Why is it any different for this release?
Well, I'm going to say this.
Hmm.
I'll echo that, Ken. I never thought I'd see the day when we'd get a 6 CD set with 138 tracks, 90 of which are new, and people are complaining about the one missing tooth. Okay. But having said that, my own opinion, it's inexcusable and it's indefensible to take that track off.
Hmm.
Okay. It is an album. It is a recording. It is a point in time. Okay. And to say that basically like it never happened is wrong. Okay. Um, for the remainder of this conversation, can we just call it woman for
Yes.
the sake
Okay.
of this?
Hmm.
Okay. Omitting woman from, we'll start with the live albums. Everything that Universal has released, press releases, promo stuff, websites, they are bragging about this is the first time you're going to get John's only 2 full-length concerts since he left the Beatles. Okay, so we'll give you the full-length concerts in less than full-length form. Bravo.
Yeah.
Terrific. By the way,
Hmm.
let them in on a little secret. Last time that uh that concert was released back in the 80s, okay, on the Live in New York City album and video cassette and laserdisc, that song, as well as, well, at least in the video form, Sisters Oh Sisters was in there.
Hmm.
Not sure why that one's being cut, but there it is. Now, little asterisk to your point, Ken, about it not being erased from history. You can still go buy the original album. That's fine. But guess what? I'm wondering what happens when they repress the John Lennon Anthology 4-disc box set. It was in there.
Hmm.
It cut from there too. There's a live version of that song. Okay, that's the evening show performance. So we actually have in our possession today, if you're a completist, you have both versions of that song. Okay, so it's not like you can say just turn your head and it's not there. Okay, um, again, plugging it as his only full-length concerts and editing it out is just, it makes no sense to me. We were having this conversation. I'm not going to drag any other names into it. In the hallways, um, over at the house where I do my other Beatles stuff, and one of the folks said, "Well, it's good that it's off there. It's a lousy song anyway." I said, okay, that'll be the
Yeah.
marker from now on. I said, one, it's not a lousy song. It's actually a very good song,
Hmm.
good message. And by the way, musically, it's a very good song. Okay, but that's not it. Another one, someone else weighed in with, yeah, but the context of that word has gotten, it's gotten too sensitive and too this and too that. And I kind of ended it, and it's not like me to be the snarky one in the room, right?
Mm.
No, no, not me. No. Uh,
Yeah.
I said, well, that's okay then. I said, but I'm glad they saw fit to at least keep John Sinclair on there. And they said, why? What about John Sinclair? I said, oh, nothing, just the part about shooting gooks in Vietnam. Well, I didn't write that. Okay, that's the lyrics to the song. But is
Right.
it because what, no one knows that song, or because the word's not in the title and is not
Hmm.
in your face somewhere about it? But what about that? Because it's going to be in there in the album. It's going to be in there in the Ann Arbor concert. And I didn't look and see if it's on the home tapes anywhere else, but it's in that set at least twice. Okay. So at least we'll still have the part about shooting gooks in Vietnam. Right on,
Hmm.
Universal. You've done your homework. I don't know if it's because they don't know the song, they didn't pay attention to
That's
the song,
probably it. Yeah.
or because it's not just so up out in the front. Now, are there other ways to do this? Yes, there are other ways to do this. I have in my collection, it was one of those like Price Club bargain 3 CD. It was a John Lennon greatest hits, three
Mm.
discs, 12 songs a piece. They run like half an hour a piece, but it's still 3 discs, right? One with rock songs, one with live songs. And it actually reads when you're reading, and this goes back, by the way, to 2001, 25 years ago, okay? On the package and on the CD, it says, woman is the N dot 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 of the world.
Mm.
I found that interesting back then. It said, okay, I wasn't offended one way or the other. The song was on there, and we're home, right?
Hmm.
Move ahead a decade, and I use the term ahead very loosely, right? We move ahead to 2010. There was that other, it was a box set called Gimme Some Truth, a 4-disc set.
Right.
Yep.
And it was in there and it was fully spelled out,
Mhm.
full word. Okay. And last I looked, nobody lost their minds over that. Okay. Last I looked.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that's a word people should be going around yelling about all the time. Okay. I get that. It's not a song that will be in a lot of rotations, right? Ken, you're a radio guy. Al, you've done enough radio. I'm doing enough radio. We have to think about if that's in regular rotation. I don't know. Mom picks up the kids after school, is taking them to soccer, and that comes up, and 8-year-old kids are hearing this in the car. Okay, no good. Okay, for
Mhm.
sure, no good. I'm not saying it has to be in rotation. I'm saying it has to be on that record. Okay, that's what I'm saying. You cannot, look, to our point a few minutes ago talking about who collects things. Who's buying a 9-disc and three Blu-ray and 204-page box? The casual fan? No.
Mhm.
The collector, the fan,
Yeah.
the completist. Okay, that's who you're asking to spend a couple of $100 on this thing, and you're asking them to put it on their shelf as their definitive, John Lennon sometime in New York City album, and it's got all the charm of a smile with a missing tooth. It really does.
And they are the people
Yeah.
who would be least offended by that song.
Well, by the way, I said,
Mhm.
look, I gave that example of woman is n dot 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 of the world, or woman is the blank world, or however you want to do it. For all I care, what they could have done. You guys have seen when John and Yoko performed that song on the Dick Cavett show, right?
Yes.
Sure.
Cavett had to come out and
You're right.
explain it to
Mhm.
people and say, look, there are guests, they're artists, they've written this song. It's about feminism. Give this a listen through that prism, right?
Right.
For all I care, they could have put a 12 by 12 slick with Dick Cavett's picture right as soon as you open the box
Uh-huh.
with his speech on it. They could have done that. They could have done it any number of ways. Okay. To put it in as a unlabeled bonus track, that'd be cheap, but at least it'd be in there. But no, there were ways to do this and get this to the satisfaction of the people who are their target audience. You can't tell me that, what are they, Al, Gen what, Z, double A, whatever.
Whatever.
Yeah, the MP3, collectors out there, they're not the ones buying this box set. Well, that's not who this is marketed to. It's
Mhm.
just not. Okay. They are really doing a disservice to who the target audience is for something like this.
Yeah.
I agree.
A couple of weeks ago, Ken and Darren and Kit had Gary Van Syke
Mm-hmm.
on as a guest, and
Mm-hmm.
they asked him about the exclusion of the song, and he said that it was, and Ken, correct me if I've got any wrong information, but he said it was basically the lawyers
Uh-huh.
who were responsible for it not being on there. And I have a feeling that those lawyers, presumably UMG or the filmmakers, corporate lawyers, probably have no idea that that song has appeared in so many other places, but they were just, it's corporate cowardice
Yeah,
that that led them to say no, it can't be on there.
but John Sinclair,
Right.
green light.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure I want to make sure I read it right. That's all.
Right.
Yeah.
Those corporate lawyers probably have no idea who John Sinclair was.
They probably Googled John Sinclair, said, okay, he was a radical, one of Lennon's cronies. Oh, he got him out of jail. What could be wrong with that?
Right. And he's dead now, so what does it matter? Right. That sort of thing.
Yeah. No, it's you used a good term, Al. It's corporate cowardice. It's we're not going to get into woke and a political forum. I know what said. I'm sure I know I don't, but it's just a tremendous disservice to fans who have been treated to, in order, Plastic Ono Band and Imagine box sets, and this is the next one, a look, we're the ones who bought it the first time, the second time, the third time, and whatever we're up to now, the fifth time or however many times that thing's been reissued.
Hmm.
And to to make the argument that less is more, it doesn't fly.
And I also want to say that we should not in any way be blaming Sean.
No, not at
Oh,
all.
I got news for you. It ain't his to call.
Hmm.
No, this was universal. You can make bank on that.
I would love to know if Sean sat down with the lawyers and explained what the song was all about, and even if that mattered, I don't even know.
Yeah, I'm sure he did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, look, I'd have to believe that happened at some
yeah.
point. He's still executive producer of this set,
Hmm.
right? I'd hate to think it was all or nothing. Either you take this or they're not going to carry it. I mean, look, we all know because we're the ones who pay attention to stuff like this. They
Uh-huh.
set up the website for this album, what, 2 or 3 years ago,
That's right.
coming next. And what, they balked because they realized that that's on there. Come on, it's been on there for 50 years.
Hmm.
Okay? And it's been on, I mean, if we go back to the beginning, it was on Shaved Fish.
Hmm.
It was on all the working class hero. It was on, many of the Lennon collections. And lest you think, well, it was a single and they needed to have it on there because it charted or whatever. What about the anthology? They put they put a different version of it on. They went out of their way and put a different version of it on
Yep.
there. Okay, so to me that doesn't fly.
Yeah.
Just does not fly.
I agree.
As for Sisters Oh Sisters, I just have a kind of a hunch that that's a an artistic decision.
Hmm.
Because I don't know, because I mean, Yoko is still with us,
Mhm.
and she may not have felt that it was a good performance because I mean, after all, the studio version is on the set.
Yeah.
Yeah, the studio version is on, and there's actually a real good one on. It's one of the new DVDs, Daytime Revolution, I think,
Mm.
where it's just John playing acoustic with her
Hmm.
singing. It's very, very good.
It's a good
Very,
song that way with that arrangement.
yeah, it's very good. And it'll be on there, I guess, for the Sinclair rally, right? That was the one that we never
Yes.
had released before. Was that, or was it
Hmm.
Attica State? One of the two we didn't have. It was Sisters of.
Oh,
Sinclair, I think.
yeah,
Yeah,
Attica. Yeah,
yeah,
that was the one.
yeah.
All right. But I still think, kind of like what you said, you put the disclaimer of what Dick Cavett said on his show.
Hmm.
I would explain
Yeah.
to people. Not only that, but we brought this up on, I think, Talk More Talk. And it was on the Mike Douglas show where John was reading something that a representative in California had said about the use of that word and that we're all that word
Hmm.
based on the way that we're treated in our society. Since the song is all about the oppression of women in our society, he's making the case that we're all like oppressed. There's no reason to really be offended by that song. It's only for people who don't want to take the time to understand what the song's all about.
Exactly.
I hate to think that we've come to this level here in our society that we have to watch every single word that we say. I like to bring up as a comparison, when All in the Family came out, those first
Oh,
few years, it was so radically different and so groundbreaking. And a show like that could never work right now. Not on network television, but there are people who are offended by what Archie Bunker said in the show. In fact, I even saw that Lucille Ball tried to get the show off the air because she was offended by that character, instead of understanding that Norman Lear was making fun of him.
He was the joke, right?
right.
He was the joke.
And in fact, there was a disclaimer on screen at the beginning of the first episode,
Hmm.
Hmm, okay.
saying that this is, it's in a sense satire,
Right.
Right.
Does not represent the views
right, of
of CBS
CBS.
television or any of its affiliates. Yeah.
Mhm.
But I know that Sean cares so deeply about making sure that his father's catalog is preserved well, and he put so much effort behind the box sets.
Hmm.
And for people who say, well, I'm not going to buy the box set because of the one song, you're still missing out on a lot. And I'm just like you, Tom, I love that song. I've grown to love it more and more through the years. I love the whole arrangement. I love the sax playing on it. I love the orchestration on it, how it ends. It's like ends in suspense, We make her paint her face and
And
dance.
it's
Hmm.
look, and at the end of the day, it's in support of an oppressed group as opposed to, you know, being condescending to an oppressed group.
Right.
Um, People got to get in on the joke. I don't know.
But overall, the fact that Sean made sure that all this extra material was in there, I thought it was brilliant to put all the TV performances in there. I think some of us have a bootleg collecting all the TV performances
Hmm.
all on one
Possibly.
CD. It's great to have something like that, although we don't have Mike Douglas material and we don't have Dick Cavett material on here.
Maybe it would have been good to put the Cavett version in there with
Yeah,
Cavett doing his, his preamble.
Hmm.
I know. But I'm definitely excited about both these releases. But yet, I don't know what it is about some Beatle fans that, like we said, are never satisfied. There are some people who can't wait to trounce on every release before it even comes out, but I'm
Yeah,
yeah.
look, I'm a completist. I'm a collector, right? I'm not I don't think you'd call me the typical fan, right? I'm
No.
a bit more rabid than that. Um, yeah, to me, less is not more. Okay, generally speaking. And it's hard to get a set with 138 tracks, 90 of which are new and unreleased officially, and still find it hard to swallow. That's um I think it's just fundamentally wrong what they did.
Mm. And I also question how
Mm.
far do you take this? I mean, there's one other Beatles podcast where somebody wrote in and said, "Are they going to take off Run for Your Life from Rubber Soul because
No.
it's about a man being?"
Yes, I heard that.
Yeah, I mean,
I
who kn-
think that was in jest.
who
Wait, we're going to take Getting Better off Sergeant Pepper next, right? Because he used to beat his woman and keep her apart from the things that she loved. Get
Hmm.
it out of there.
Yeah, Maxwell Silverhammer.
Crazy. It's crazy. Okay. That's crazy. Okay.
Oh yeah, because you start, you know, slicing and dicing the whole catalog, and
Oh, look, there are people who say, look, they complain when Ringo sings You're 16 in concert.
yeah.
It was a number one hit about teenagers in love, period. It's not,
Hmm.
oh, he's an 85-year-old man preying on 16-year-old girls.
Uh,
That's not what this is.
Yes.
Okay. That's not what this is. Um, you know, just some people, they apparently have too much time on their hands. I don't know.
Absolutely. You know, if Johnny Burnett had lived to an advanced age, he would
Right.
have, that was his
Yeah.
signature hit. He would have been performing it
Right.
for, decades and decades,
Right.
uh-huh.
with, no
Right. Nobody,
blowback.
nobody said anything when Ringo was 32 and singing that.
Yeah.
Kind of,
It's,
viewed through that prism, that's still kind of
mhm.
odd, but
Yeah,
that's not the point.
right.
The point is it's a song about teenagers in love. Okay. And that's
Hmm.
what it's like. Okay. My heart went pop. Okay. That's what it's about, you know.
Hmm.
I
Oh,
get
and of course, the Never Satisfieds are also up in arms about the fact that the video of the concert is not in this box.
Well, that is coming under separate cover
Yeah,
from what we
right.
hear. And
Yeah,
we're going to get the documentary, I believe, will be airing on HBO, or is it airing or streaming? What's the right word now? It'll be available on
it'll be
HBO in the fall.
right.
But I think a video release, an actual release is coming, they said next year on the concerts. So
Okay. What was it that John said? The world is run by insane people, insane.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's certainly true now more than ever, I think.
Mm.
That's for sure.
All right. So thank you guys for sharing your views on these two releases. And Tom, you want to tell folks, well, we only have a short amount of
Yeah,
time.
right. We only have a short amount of time here. Well, I guess the biggest news we had, in addition to the shows that have been running now for some years, we're wrapping up. There's still a couple of episodes left running through mid-September of the series we did called Help from His Friends. It's a complete history of Ringo and the All-Stars.
Hmm.
89. When I'm telling you literally to the summer of 2005, 2025, I have a piece on it in Beatlefan, actually, in the new issue,
Right.
explaining how we got even material from the current tour from 2025 to include, among other unreleased cuts. Some things came off of DVDs, and things that had been in circulation, but we got a few things from Ringo's camp that haven't been available anywhere legitimately, either by CD, LP, video, streaming, websites, whatever, that they were generous enough to give us. So that was great fun to put that together. Everybody who was in the band is represented by at least one song, and even the folks that don't sing, like the Greg Bissonets and Jim Keltners and Zach Starkeys of the world, we salute them accordingly along the way. But if anybody took to a microphone and said, "This was a big hit for me, and I'd like to sing it for you now," they are in the series doing one of their hits. So it was great fun putting that together. And of course, Ringo bookends every special. We do an opening and a closing song by Ringo, and in between, uh, more hits than you could ever imagine. It was a pretty staggering list of songs to pick from. I
Yep.
mean, we had guidelines. Pick, if you're in doubt, pick the one that charted highest. Okay, I'm up to Felix Cavalieri. He brought three songs, all were number ones. Where do you want to go?
Hmm.
I file that under good problems to have, right? It was a great deal of fun. Ringo gave it his blessing. He made his team available to us for hitting the vaults. So we made the best series we could. We had Mark Rivera, Ringo's longtime musical director, as our host. So he gave some peeks behind the curtain, and it was really one of the things that made my job as writer for it very easy. I would say, yeah, okay, that was Rick Derringer singing Hang On Sloopy, a number one hit from 1965. That part's easy. Then it would have a nice big hole and say, Mark, tell a good Rick Derringer story here. And he would just, there he would go, oh, we were in Japan, and he would go with it. So the series did really, really well for us. We got a lot of good feedback. Ringo's team was very much on board. We couldn't have been happier with it. And we have more Ringo coming in the fall and into the beginning of next year, based on some time he availed to us, for some
Hmm.
in-depth interviews. So plenty more coming, and we'll have lots coming as the anthology and Power to the People approach as well.
Okay. Might I advise everybody watching to see my previous interview with Tom when he went more in detail about
Yes.
a conversation that he had with Ringo.
Mm.
Hmm.
Kind of lengthy.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was not the worst couple hours of my life. I could say that. We got so many good stories out of him. We're going to be celebrating that. Frankly, again, under the heading of good problems. Yeah, we've got anthology specials that have started already. And we're going to have Lennon specials for Power to the People. And, as the McCartney and Wings book comes, who knows what else Paul will be doing for that. It's going to be a busy fourth quarter, that's for sure.
Yeah. Exciting.
Exciting stuff.
All right. Al, what's going on with you? I know that you contributed your piece for the Bruce Spicer book, the latest one,
Hmm.
Yes.
Beatles for
Hmm.
Sale
Right.
2.
Actually, two chapters.
Okay.
One on the news of the period, and one on the music of the single greatest year in the history of the rock era, 1965.
Hmm.
Do you agree with that, Tom?
Again, I viewed that in the rearview mirror. Okay, so I didn't know. I mean, okay, all right, yeah. When I was three, yeah, I thought it was the greatest year ever. Look, it's a solid case you can make. for 65. That's for sure. I mean, look, it speaks for itself. I mean, look, I know some of my own favorite years come later. Okay, particularly as a
Mm-hmm.
Beatles fan, I think 73 is pretty good. You know, uh,
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
not bad.
you're in my ballpark there because I always
Right in the
always
sweet
talk
spot.
about
Yeah,
73.
yeah. But Al's piece on
Yeah.
65 makes a pretty compelling case at a minimum. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. 66 is pretty close, but I
Yeah.
just personally give the edge to 65. But also, the brand new issue of Beatlefan magazine
You
Mhm.
can
Yep, there
is
it
out,
is.
sit higher.
and oh,
There you go. Yep.
there we go. And along with Tom's piece on Ringo at Radio City and all, also I've got a piece that was kind of bubbling up inside of me after the passing of Brian Wilson, and it's mainly about the relationship between Brian and Paul and the Beach Boys and the Beatles and all. But it was a piece that I just felt needed to get done. Also, there's a piece that I did some time back that Bill decided to run on the Rolling Stones, and basically the competition between the Beatles and the Stones. And also with the 60th anniversary of Help, Bill ran a point counterpoint that he and I had done in 2007. I think it was 2007 when the DVD came out,
Mhm.
on the film.
Yeah.
So I'm all over this issue.
Okay, good.
Al fan, we call it.
Right.
Beat Al fan.
Well, I certainly hope, and I talked to Al about this because he's several times been saying on my channel here that 1965 was the greatest year in pop music. I hope I get to do a show on that. We've been talking about that. Got so many things
Mm-hmm.
coming up, but maybe soon we'll do something with a few guests and we could all debate it. I like so many years. It's real tough for me to pick a favorite. I could say Beatle-wise, it's 1973
Oh, of course.
of all
Sure.
the solo albums that came out that year. But in general, it's really tough when you're considering all the other music and being a top 40 guy and loving the hits of the 60s and 70s in particular, and the 80s, but more 60s and 70s. It's hard for me to pick a favorite year,
Mm.
you know, because of the
Yeah.
Beatles and top 40, I have very eclectic taste. So,
Mm.
it's there's no telling what year I could pick as my favorite. I have to really seriously think about that.
67 and 69 would make a nice run too.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Early 70s.
Yeah.
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 Anyway, thank you guys for doing this. This has been a lot of fun. Everybody watching this show, if you want to comment about those two box sets coming out, the anthologies, Anthology 4, 1 through 3, Power to the People, please do so. Would love to get your thoughts. Everybody's talking about this. Yes, I said everybody's
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah.
Everybody's talking. Everybody. Everybody. Yes.
Literally everybody.
So why don't you guys watching chime in as well? I'd love to know your thoughts and what you thought of what Tom and Al said in our show, as well as me. And those of you who haven't done so, please subscribe to my channel. Thanks to everyone for watching. And again, thanks to Tom and Al. And we'll see you next time. Take care.